Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Beis, Daf 52 of Masechta Sukkah. Daf 52 is pretty cool, friends. It talks a lot about like the yetzer harah. Some interesting stuff. Maybe you've heard of some of it. Some of it's like kind of famous-ish. So let's just like jump in over here and have some fun. So we're going to start at Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis at the two dots, like 8 lines from the bottom or so. Motzoi Yom Tiv Chule. So we said that on the night after the first day of Sukkot, so I guess the second night of Sukkot, they would make a Tikkun Gadol. So, fact the Gemara, my Tikkun Gadol, what's this big thing that they would make there on the second night of Sukkot? Omer Belazar Ba'osa Sheshaninu. So Belazar says it's like they taught that initially the walls of the Ezras Noshim, of course the Ezras Noshim was like the part of the Azara before you get to the Shar Nikanor and the Ezras Yisrael. There was like a square area called the Ezras Noshim. And initially the walls were just kind of flat, straight walls. But they put up like platforms on it, like a second level. A balcony on it. And eventually they made a takane. They said, you know what? At the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, let's separate the men and the women so that there shouldn't be any too much mingling during the festivities. And the women went onto the platform on top, and the men were down below. Initially, the women were inside in the Ezras Nashim, and the men were outside on harah. And there was too much mingling, and people were getting too excited. So they switched it around. They said, okay, so why don't we experiment with the women being on harah and the men being in the Ezras Nashim? But I know and still they were coming to frivolity. So they said, you know what, how about this? Let's just separate the men from the women, put them on different levels. The women will be on the balcony, the men will be on the ground level. How could you do that? How could you just add on a balcony to the Beis HaMikdash? But the Pasuk says that David HaMelech says to Shlomo, he says, all the architecture of the Beis HaMikdash was given to me from God. So if the architecture for the Beis HaMikdash was given to David HaMelech from God, how could we just say, we don't want too much mingling, we're just going to add a balcony? You can't just add a balcony to the designs of God. Rav says, well, they didn't just make it up out of nowhere, but they found a pasuk to rely upon that justified their decision. That the pasuk says in Sefer Zechariah that during the time of Mashiach, it says that the families are going to mourn, to eulogize alone. The family of the house of David alone, as well as their wives alone, i.e. the men and the women will be separate in this time of mourning and eulogizing. So at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they said, well, we can make the following logical conclusion, which is that in the future, at the times of Mashiach, when they're eulogizing, and there's not going to be any yetzer harah, as we're about to see in a minute, that in the future the yetzer harah is going to be slaughtered, and nonetheless, and still, we're seeing that the pasuk says that the men and women would be separate even at a time of mourning, of eulogizing. Now, during the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, when everybody's having a good time and having fun together, and there is a yetzer harah, the yetzer harah has not yet been slaughtered, as we're going to see in a minute. So certainly we need to take precautions and separate the men and the women so that there is no frivolity. The Gemara asks what I'm sure many of us have been thinking. What are they eulogizing when Mashiach comes? What's there to eulogize? Pligi bar Reb Dosa v'Rabbanan, so it's tak machlokas between Reb Dosa and the Rabbanan. Charomer al Mashiach ben Yosef shenerag. So one opinion is that they're mourning that Mashiach, the son of Joseph, was killed. V'chad omer yetzer harah shenerag. And there are those who say that they are mourning that the yetzer harah was killed. So I understand why they would mourn over Mashiach ben Yosef that was killed. That makes sense. This is what the pasuk says. Ve'bitu Eli es asher dakaru, and they will see to me that which they stabbed to death and slayed. V'saftu olav k'misped ala yachid, and they will eulogize upon him like you eulogize for a single child who was killed. Kilu Mashiach ben Yosef is going to be killed during the fight of Gog u'Magog, and it's sad, and the people will mourn. Okay, I get that. Elamando Omar hayitzer harah shenerag hayaspeda ba'ilem simcha ba'ilem. In fact, the Gemara, I don't understand. According to the opinion who says that they're going to be mourning that the yetzer harah was destroyed, was killed, why would you be mourning upon that? Rejoice! There's no more yetzer harah, givaldig. Amai bachu. What are they crying about? Kidudar Rabbi Yehuda. It's like Rabbi Yehuda darshans the Asid Lavo. Maybe you've heard this. I think it's a relatively famous Gemara. It's a very cool Gemara. The Asid Lavo mevio HaKadosh Baruch Hu yetzer harah, that in the future, during the time of Mashiach, the Eibishter is going to bring the evil inclination. V'shochato bifnei tzadikim ubifnei arishayim, and he's going to slaughter the evil inclination before the righteous and before the evil. Tzadikim nidme lohem kehar gavoh, to the righteous, the yetzer harah that is being slaughtered is going to appear to them like a great mountain. V'rishayim nidme lohem kechut asayra, and to the nudniks, it's just going to look like a very thin thread. Halalu bochin v'alalu bochin, and the righteous as well as the nudniks are going to be crying. Tzadikim bochin v'omrim he'ach yachonu lichbosh har gavoah kazeh. The tzadikim think back to the struggles that they had with the yetzer harah and how hard and how much effort they had to put in to suppress the yetzer harah. It was like a humongous mountain that they're finally relieved from, and they're crying, reflecting upon all the struggles that was involved in their journey with the yetzer harah. V'rishayim bochin v'omrim, and the nudniks, they cry and they say, He'ach lo yachonu lichbosh es chut hasayra ezeh. How could it be that we failed and we were unable to suppress even such a thin thread like this? And even the Eibishter is surprised with them. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ko'amar Hashem tzvakos, so says God, Ki yipali b'einei sheres ha'am hazeh, when it will be to a wonder in the eyes of the remnants of this nation in those days, also it will be a wonder in my eyes. Wow, that's a pretty cool Gemara, right? Somewhat well known, I think. Omer Reb Asi, says Reb Asi, yetzer harah batchila dom lechut shel buchya. Says Reb Asi that at the beginning, the yetzer harah, the evil inclination, is like the web of a spider, very thin. Very, very, very thin, like a spider's web, like a thread. I don't know. Is there a name for like an individual thread from a spider? A spider thread? But in the end, the more you interact and allow the yetzer harah to function, so it gets thicker and thicker until it's like the thick ropes of a wagon. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Hoi moshchei avon. Woe is to those who pull the sin with the ropes of nothingness, these very thin, nothingy kind of ropes, and like the thickness of ropes of a carriage is sin, meaning it starts off like nothing, this thin little nothing rope, but it ends up becoming thick like the ropes of a wagon. Taner Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach, the son of David, who is going to be revealed very quickly in our days, Omer lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu shami meni davar ve'etein lecha. The Eibishter says to Mashiach ben David, he says, ask me anything and I will grant it to you. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Asaper el chok v'gomer, ani ayomi l'dticha. Right, I will speak the following statement. I today have given birth to you. Sha'al mimeni ve'etna goyim nachlasecha. Ask from me anything, and I will give you nations as your inheritance. V'chim tzarab Mashiach ben Yosef. Shenerag, and when Mashiach ben David sees that Mashiach ben Yosef was killed, Omer l'fan of Ribono Shel Olam, Eini mevakesh mimcha elachayim. So when Mashiach ben David sees that Mashiach ben Yosef has been killed, he asks the Eibishter, look, all I could possibly want is just life. Omer lo, the Eibishter says to him, Chayim ad shelo yomarta kvar esnabi alecha David avicha. With regard to life, you don't have to ask me for life. You don't have to ask me for life. Your father David already prophesied for you that you will have life. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Chaim shalom mimcha nasatalo, that he asked you for life and you gave it to him. Dara v'gomer. Dara shabavira, says Rabavira v'itemer Yoshua ben Levi, Shiva shemus yesh li yetzer harah, that there are 7 names for the yetzer harah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu kro ra. The Eibishter calls it bad. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ki yetzer leva adam ra min urav, because the yetzer of in the person's heart is evil, is bad. Moshe kro oral. Moshe calls the yetzer harah uncircumcised. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Umaltem orles levavchem. You will circumcise the closure of your heart. David crowed Tame. David calls the yetzer harah impure. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Leivtar brali elokim. That David Melech says, please create me with a pure heart, Michlal dikotame, implying that the opposite would be that as opposed to a pure heart, there's also an impure heart, and that would be the yetzer harah. Shlomo Crow Sone. Shlomo calls the yetzer harah a hater. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, in Raiv Sona Acha, if the person who hates you is hungry, ha'achileu lechem, feed him bread, which Rashi says is a reference to the Torah. If your yetzer harah is hungry, then shtag. Ve'im tzame ashkei umayim, if your enemy is thirsty, feed him water, which is also a reference to Torah, as it says, go to water and drink. Because by doing so you'll be putting coals on his head, and the Eibishter will repay you. Don't say repay you, rather to make peace with you, that by learning Torah, by steiging, so then your yetzer harah will come to peace with you and be suppressed. Yeshaya kiro michshol. Yeshaya calls the yetzer harah a obstacle. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, solu panu derech, go clear out a way. Harimu michshol miderech ami, remove the obstacle from the way of my nation. Yechezkel kro evan, and Yechezkel calls the yetzer harah a stone. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, vasirosias leva evan mibsarchem, I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh. V'nasati lachem lebaser, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Yoel kro tzvoni. Yoel calls the yetzer harah tzvoni. Shenemar vesat tzvoni archik me'elechem, I will remove the tzvoni from you. That's a reference to the yetzer harah that is tzafun, that is hidden in a fellow. All right. So 7 names to the yetzer harah. Who can tell me what they are? Quick. Who is paying attention? Quick little quiz over here. It's a good thing this is asynchronous. Nobody's really put on the spot. I will distance the tzvoni from you. Yetzer harah, that is the evil inclination that is hidden in a person's heart. And I will push him away to a land of destruction, to a place where the yetzer harah will not be able to lead anybody astray and to start up with them. As Ponov Elayam Akadmoni, its face towards the eastern sea, Shenosan Enov B'Mikdash Rishon Ve'echrivo, that he placed his eyes to the first Beis HaMikdash and destroyed it. We learned in Masechta Yoma and Daf Tes Amud Beis, I think, that the first temple was destroyed for Avodah Zarah, Kilerayos and Shvichus Damim. So we see that the yetzer harah got involved over there in the first Beis Hamikdash. V'harag Talmidei Chacham shabo, and the Talmidei Chacham there died. V'sof Aliyam Achron, and its end to the later sea. That the yetzer hara got involved in the second temple and destroyed that one as well, and killed the Torah scholars there. That it's like stench rises up, which means that the yetzer hara leaves the other nations and goes to create a headache for the Yidden, that he is great to do. Amar Abaye says Abaye, that when it comes to Talmidei Chachamim, the yetzer hara is particularly determined to make them mess up. Kiyada Abaye, like there's an incident with Abaye, Shamilau Gavra, he heard a certain fellow, Dekamulai Itza, who said to a certain woman, Naktim v'neso ba'orcha, let us go and travel, let's go and we will wake up early and we'll go on a trip together. Omer Ezel Afrashinu Meisur. So Abaye says, I'm going to go and follow them to make sure that there is nothing inappropriate that will happen between this man and this woman. Also Basrayu Tloso Parse, so he followed them at a distance for 3 parsas, Be'agma in a swamp. Kavu Parshe Me'adode, and when they left each other, because at a certain point there was a fork in the road, and this fellow was going right and this woman was going left. So Shaminu Duka Amre, so Abaye heard that they said to one another, Orchin Rechika v'tzavsim b'sima. He says, look, we have to continue traveling far. It was nice to spend time together, but now we need to split ways. And there was nothing inappropriate happening there between this man and this woman. Amar Abaye says, Abaye iman dusani li hava lo hava matzilo kumenafshe. Abaye says, if it was me, I would not have been able to control myself. And this fellow and this woman, they walked this whole distance and there was nothing inappropriate happening between them. Here was Abaye, he says, look, for sure something's going on over here, I'm going to follow, and if anything goes wrong, I'll stop them. Sure enough, nothing wrong happened. Not only that, Abaye says, how could this be? I know for sure if it was me, there would be problems. How could it be that I'm Abaye and, I'm the Rosh Hashiva in Pumbedisa? I don't know if he was Rosh Hashiva then, but he was definitely fancy stuff. And yet, how could it be that I would be unable to stand up to the test, and this ordinary fellow was able to pass this test? Also, so he went and he felt bad and he sat in some doorpost somewhere. Also, Usava, a certain elder came, which is often a reference, generally I think accepted, at least according to some, to be a reference to Eliyahu Hanavi. Tanale kol hagadol mechaver yitzu gadol imenu, and this elder says to Abaye, he says, anybody who's greater than other people, his evil inclination is also greater than them. I guess to appease Abaye, to say that the reason why you have stronger desires is because the greater you are, the greater your desires are, the greater your evil inclination is. Amr Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, Yitzur shel adam is gaber olav b'chol yom. Says Rabbi Yitzchak, a fellow's yetzer hara rises up upon him, strengthens up upon him every single day. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, rak kol hayom, only evil gans tug all day. Amr Reb Shimon ben Lakish, says Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Yitzur shel adam is gaber olav b'chol yom uvakish lamiso. A fellow's yetzer, a fellow's evil inclination, strengthens up against him every single day. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, so for Rashul l'tzadik uvakish lamiso, that the evil, the nudnik just waits for the righteous and wants to kill him. The ilmule HaKadosh Baruch Hu she'ozelo, and if not for the fact that the Eibishter helps out, and Yachol lo, the fellow would not be able to defeat the yetzer hara who is strengthening against him. Shneimaz, the pasuk says, Hashem le'yazvenu biyado v'le'yashenu b'shavto, that the Eibishter will not leave the fellow in the hands of the yetzer hara, and he will not make the yid, the person, guilty in whatever kind of court case the yetzer hara will bring against him. Tana devei Rabbi Shmuel, starting the besmedrish of Rabbi Shmuel, in pagabach menuvel zeh, if this menuvel, this nudnik yetzer hara encounters you, Mashcheru leveis hamedrash, schlep him into the study hall, im evenu nimoach, im barzlu mispotzets, and if this evil inclination is like stone, it will dissolve. If it is like iron, it will explode. Im evenu nimoach, if it is like stone, it will dissolve. The pasuk says, so called samei l'chulamayim, that anybody who is thirsty, come and drink. That's a reference to the Torah, to studying Torah. Uchsiv, and the pasuk says, avanim shachaku mayim, that water can sort of carve away at stone. That water can kind of eat away and dissolve and make an impression upon stone. In barzalu, and if the yetzer is like iron, mispotates, it will sort of explode. The pasuk says, that my words are like fire, says God, and it's like a hammer that shatters stone. That the yetzer hara kind of tries to mess up a fellow in this world, who made olav lolam haba, and then testifies a bit about him in the world to come. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, mefanik minoar avdo, if a fellow has a slave and he sort of gives him all alagit zachin, he gives him all sorts of good things, and is mefanekim, he pampers the slave. V'achrisu yemanon, in the end, the slave is going to testify against this master who pampered him. Shekain be'atbach shoribchia, because in the atbach of Rebchia, in the Saida Manon, Saida is Manon. Atbach is basically Aleph Tes Beis Ches. We saw it, I think, in Masechta Shabbos, maybe. Atbash, we saw Aleph Taf Beis Shin. This is like sort of like a subset of that, where it goes 1, 9, 2, 8, 3, 7, etc. And then whatever, you have like certain letters that aren't used, like Hey and Nun and I think one other one, can't remember now. But basically you can swap around different letters, and basically Sahada becomes Manon. So therefore Manon in the pasuk is reference to witnesses. Therefore, the point being that if you pamper your yetzer hara and let it get the best of you, the better of you, it is going to testify against you in the future. Rafuna asked the following kasha. Ksiv, on the one hand, the pasuk says, Kiruach znun hissa, that the spirit of, not goodness, of inappropriateness, hissa, is like trying to sway you. Uchsiv bikirbam, and another pasuk says that this spirit of inappropriateness is inside of you. So is it external, outside of you, trying to sway you, or is it inside of you? Batchila hisam levasov bikirbam. Well, it starts out around you and then it seeps into you. Amar Rav says, Rav batchila kro heilech levasov kro orech levasov kro ish. Says Rav, the pasuk first refers to the yetzer hara as sort of like a wanderer, and then it refers to it as a guest, and then it refers to it as the balabayas, as the landlord. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Vayavo heilech leisha ashir, that this wanderer came to this wealthy man, Vayachmal lakachas mitzonu mibkaro, and the wealthy man had sympathy upon this wanderer, and to give him from his sheep and from his cattle, lasos la'oreach, to make for the guest. So we see already he's no longer a wanderer, now he's a guest. Uchsiv, and it says, Vayikach eskivsas ha'ish arash, and he took the sheep that was for the downtrodden person, the poor person, vayasa le'ish haba'elav, and he made it for this ish, for this person who came to him, and we're saying that it's kilu, now he became like the balabais. So we see that the yetzer hara first starts out as like a wanderer, then becomes a guest, and then takes over. Omer Reb Yochanan, it says Reb Yochanan, Ever Katan yesh lo la'adam. A fellow has this small limb. Mar'ivo saveh must be a rahiv. If he starves it, so then it's satisfied. But if he satisfies it, then it is hungry. This, of course, is referring to a man's penis. And if he Mar'ivo saveh, if he suppresses his urges, I guess, so then he'll be alright, he'll have things under control, whereas masbio, right, but if he just kind of goes after his urges, then he's going to continue to be hungry. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Kamar Isam v'yizbo v'gomer, that they got satisfied and then they kind of forgot the Eibishter. Omer Rav Chana bar Acha, Ami be'Rav, there are 4 things that the Eibishter regrets that He created them. These are them. Galus kasdim v'shmein v'yetzer hara, that is exile, also the kasdim and the Ishmaelim and the evil inclination. Galus d'chsiv. How do we know that the Eibishter wishes that He didn't create exile? As the pasuk says, "Ve'ato mali po nu'um Hashem." What am I doing over here? Says God in the exile. Kilukach amichinam v'gomer, that my nation was taken not for any good reason. It's not like the other nations had particular merit, but my nation was just taken. Therefore, God regrets having put the Yidden in the exile. Kasdim, the Kasdim, Shenemar, as the pasuk says, the pasuk says, Hin eretz Kasdim ze ha'am lo hayo. This is this land of Kasdim. That this is a nation that was never, I guess, never anything important. Yishmaelim dichsev, also the Ishmaelites, as the pasuk says, Yishlayu ohalim l'shodedim, that the tents live in peace for the thieves, uvtuchos l'magiz ekel, and they live in security, those who make God angry. And the reference to the tent dwellers is a reference to like Arab wanderers, and the Eibishter regrets that He created them. La'asher hevi aloha biyado, to those who take their God in their hand. Yetzer hara, how do you know that God regrets having created the evil inclination? Tichsev, as the pasuk says, v'asher hari osi, and that which I made evil. Right, the evil inclination that I created. God feels bad about that. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Ilmali shalosh mikraos halalu, if not for these three following psukim, nismod tu agleim shel soneim shel Yisrael, then the Yidden would be in big trouble. What are these three psukim that kind of save the Yidden? Chad dichsev, one pasuk is which it says, v'asher hari osi, that God says that He takes responsibility. He says, look, I've created the evil inclination. I mean, there's nothing that the Yidden can do about it. I'm the one who created it. Another pasuk it says, Hine kachomer b'yad yetzer. We're right before the Yom Noraim. This is something that we say in the prayers in the Yom Noraim. We say Kine kachomer b'yad yetzer, like the materials in the hands of the potter, of the creator. Kein atem v'gomer, so are you. Meaning that the Eibishter can do whatever He wants with us, and therefore, if He wanted to, He can make sure that we don't sin. Ve'idach, and another pasuk, the third pasuk, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Again, we see that it's up to God, that He can just swap out the bad for the good. So that's kind of like a defense for the Yidden. It's like, well, God, why didn't you just like swap out the bad for the good? Rav Papa Omer says, Rav Papa af mehainami, you could also infer from the following pasuk, V'ezruchi etem b'kirbechem v'gomer, and I will place my spirit inside of you. V'yir'eni Hashem arba charoshim, says the pasuk in Zechariah, that the Eibishter showed me the four craftsmen. Man ninu, who are the four craftsmen? Man ninu arba charoshim, who are these four craftsmen? Omer Rav Chana bar Bizna, Omer Rav Shimon Chasida, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, ve'Eliyahu, ve'Kohen Tzedek. The Kohen Tzedek was a reference to Shem ben Noach. Most of Rav Sheshes Asakasha, Yochi. 1 second. These craftsmen are Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Shem and Eliyahu. Hainu d'chsev, is this what the pasuk says? Vayomer Eli, that the angel said to me, Ela akronos asher zoru es Yehuda, that these are the horns that scattered out Judah. Hane l'shuva asu. But these four personalities, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Eliyahu, Melchizedek, so they are coming for tshuva. Right? They're good people. They're not bad people. And when it says Eila Akronos Asher Zoru Es Yehuda, that seems like they're pretty nudniki. Amalei Shvil Sefer Dikra, to which Rav Chana bar Bizna says to Rav Sheshes, he says, yeah, but look at the end of the pasuk. Vayavo Eila Lahachrid Osam, that these four craftsmen, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, Eliyahu, and Kohen Tzedek, they are coming to basically save the Yidden, to destroy these corners, these kronos, these horns that scattered Israel. Liados is a kronos, to knock down these horns. Hagoyim anosim keren el eretz Yehuda lezaros v'gomer, against those people who hold their horns, pride against the land of Judah. So basically, Mashiach Madav, Mashiach Ben Yosef, Eliyahu, and Kohen Tzedek are coming to save the Yidden. To which Rav Shesha says, why do I even get started to compete with Rav Chana when it comes to Agadita? Obviously, he's correct. Vayez Shalom Asher, and says the pasuk in Micha, it says that there will be peace when Ashur, the Assyrians, Kiyavo Baratzenu, when they come to our land, Yidroch Bar Menusenu, and they will come into our palace, Vakimonu Olav Shivaroim, and we will put in place 7 shepherds, Vishmona Nesiche Adam, and 8 appointed ones, Maninu Shivaroim. Who are the 7 shepherds? David Be'emtza. You have David in the middle, Adam Shesu Misushelach Mimino, you have Adam Arishon, Shes, and Misushelach to David HaMelech's right, Avram, Yaakov, Moshe Bismolo, Avram and Yaakov and Moshe to David HaMelech's left. And you might be asking, wait, what about Yitzchak? If you remember, right, Rashi points out, if you remember the Gemara in Shabbos, where Yitzchak saves all the Yidden from the din of Gehenim, so Yitzchak is out busy saving the Yidden. Umaninu Shmona Nesiche Adam, who are the 8 appointed ones? Yishai v'Shaul, v'Shmuel, Amos, Utzvanya, Tzidkiah, Umashiach, v'Eliyahu. Wow, super interesting. Okay, now going back to the Simchas Pesach Shoeva. So we said that there were these 4 lamps. No, that there were. Did we say that there were 4 lamps, or just like that there were a bunch of lamps? Let's see. What did we say? Menorah shel zahav hayusham. Yeah, it just says that there were a bunch of these lamps, and each lamp had like 4 like big containers for oil on top of it. And we said that the children, these young Kohanim, I think we said, right, the Pirchei Kahuna, right? What do we say? Right? So then these young Kohanim would go up with this oil and pour it into the cups at the top. So we said it was 120 logs worth of oil. So where are we? So Arba Sulam. So there were 4 ladders. Tana, it was taught, Gova Shel Menorah Chamishim Amad, that these lamps, each lamp was 50 amas tall. And there were 4 of these young Kohanim, and they had these lamps of 120 log. Ibailu, they asked the kasha, log kulhu, was it a total of 120 log? So there were 4 of these young Kohanim, so each one had a vessel of 30 logs, or maybe each one had 120 log of oil. Tashma, come in here, uviyadem kadei shemen shel shloshim log, shem kulam me'ev esim log. So come in here that we have a brisa that says that each young Kohen had a vessel of 30 logs that were in total between the 4 of them 120 log. Tana, it was taught, Ven mishubachin hayu yoser mibna shamarta bas baisos, and these young Kohanim were even stronger than the son of Marta bas baisos. Marta bas baisos, I believe, was one of the 3 or 4 wealthy people in Jerusalem. Yeah, I believe it was 4. I think it was Marta bas baisos, Kabul Savua, Ben Tzitzis Hakeses, and Nagdimun Ben Gurion. I think that they were the 4 wealthy people in Jerusalem during the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Anyway, so the son of Marta bas baisos, says Rashi that he was Taka Koyin, and his son was very, very strong. Amu al B'nosho Marta bas baisos, they said about the son of Marta bas baisos. Where am I? So no, wait, was Marta bas baisos a woman? I thought she was a woman, but then it said, I guess her son was a Kohen. Okay, I don't know, was she a Kohen? I don't know, but the son was a Kohen. That he would be able to hold onto 2 thighs of a large ox, that was bought for 1,000 zuz. That the son of Marta bas baisos was so strong that he would be able to hold like a thigh of an ox, one in each hand, a very big ox that was 1,000 zuz, and he would be able to schlep it up to the Mizbeach just by himself. But the Kohanim wouldn't let him do that because the pasuk says, B'rov Madras Melech, that the splendor of God is when there's a lot of people, right? So therefore they wouldn't let him do it all himself, but it definitely demonstrates how strong he was. So what does it mean then that these young Kohanim who would bring up the oil to the top of the menorah for the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, what made them stronger than the son of Marta Bas Baisas? He seems pretty strong. He can hold on to these thighs of the oxen, and it says that he would walk, very slowly. Right, his heel the heel of his right foot by the toe of his left foot, and then vice versa. Kilu, he wasn't in any rush. So it seems like, right. So ilem mishum yukra hani kiretve. If you're going to say, well, because the container with the vessels of oil were very heavy, not as heavy as the thighs of these oxen. Elahasum kevish umeruba velo zakif. Yes, but the difference is there, right? The son of Marta Bas Baisus just had to walk up a ramp, where they had to walk up vertically 50 amis holding these vessels of 30 loaves of oil. That was much more tricky and difficult than even to just schlep those two thighs of the ox. That was the Nun Beis of Masechta Sukkah. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I'd say most of the daf really talked about the yetzer harah. I think we saw some very, very interesting gemaras about the yetzer harah, like that right, there's that agarata that in the future the Eibusher is going to take the yetzer harah and is going to slaughter it, and the tzaddikim are going to cry because they reflect on how difficult it was to suppress the yetzer harah, and the Rishonim are going to cry because they see how easy it could have been to suppress the yetzer harah. It looks to them like a thin little thread. Lots of other gemaras about how the yetzer harah wants to destroy you, to defeat you every single day, and now you can schlep it to the Beis HaMedrash. And very interesting gemaras. And then at the end we kind of said how the lamps of the Simchas Beis HaShoeva were 50 amas tall, and then these children would be schlepping these vessels with 30 loaves of oil in it, and it was very, very difficult. That was Daf Nun Beis of Masechta Sukkah. I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.